you're not allowed to talk about it. Dave handled himself incredibly well, in my opinion, in this back and forth. So let's go ahead and take a listen to some of it.
With no deficit of goods coming in. I've been plenty of times.
There's no deficit?
No, there are
No
plenty
goods were kept out.
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the crossing points?
No.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings with them?
You can't time travel, but you
You're
can.
right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point?
No,
okay.
I find that
lots of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going to spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
All right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an expert,
well, you have to go and touch the ground.
No, I think you have to see. I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you spend a career talking about something. Yes, I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country even in passing unless I've at least been there.
Okay,
it's a sort of normal. It's a normal thing to do. You're talking about. Hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. Again, I think this is a non-argument. I don't understand.
No, it's not a non-argument.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a non-argument. If you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, about the provisions going into Gaza or not, if you've never seen any of this going on.
So you're not allowed to speak about things that you've read about. You can only speak about things that you've seen with your own eyes.
You can talk about what you want, as you're proving. But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit whilst developing all of these views about it. I mean, now I slightly get an idea of where you're coming from. You've read about this blockade, and so you imagine that that's what it is. I imagine you've read all the people who say that Gaza was a concentration camp.
All right, we can call it there. This is the dumbest form of argumentation, and there's a layer to this too. I actually texted this to Dave, and I was like, I kind of wish you'd said this.
While you're talking, I'll just put this up.
Yeah, I just want to be like, hey, Douglas, why do you think you got to go to the crossing points, my guy? Is it because you're on an Israeli BB-sponsored tour to go and to see this so that you go on the biggest platform in the world and say everything is fine? Why don't we call, Ryan, why don't you enlighten me and call, as you have, some of the people who live there and tell me what they have to say who are not members of Hamas? Right. Go ahead, Ryan. Tell me what the people who are on the other side of that crossing point have to say.
They say they can't find food.
Oh, okay.
And
got it.
And they have phone numbers. Has he spoken to them? Has he texted
Have you ever been
to
Gaza, Douglas? Have you ever been to Gaza?
Oh, that's
he shouldn't say anything about
it. Great point.
Yeah.
They blocked on March 2nd. They said we're not letting any aid in. They said it publicly.
Okay.
Why does Dave Smith need to go fact check the claims by the Israeli government?
Right. Yeah.
And the Palestinians on the other side confirmed it. We have both sides saying we're not letting aid in. But Dave, Murray needs to go see it.
Dave doesn't.
Weird.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah. It does remind me so much of it truly is like a very woke reminiscent argument, because one of the tactics that is used to shut down debate is like, well, if you're not a member of that marginalized group, you can't speak on issues related to that marginalized group. And I'm not going to say that there's nothing to like hearing someone's quote unquote lived experience, but that is a common tactic to just say, you're not allowed to have a say at all. Don't care what you've read. Don't care what your opinion is, what your moral compass is. Don't care. If you don't have these particular characteristics, you don't get to weigh in. I've always objected to that, whether it was on the woke side, and it's the exact same thing here. It's also very like, I don't know if he's always debated this way, but it's a very Piers Morgan panel debate tactic they spend so much time just like attacking each other's character. You're a racist. You're an anti-Semite. You haven't even been there. And, it's the type of thing that can play well in that format when you just have like 15 minutes of yelling to filibuster and try to like out alpha the people on the panel. But when you actually have to sit there and explain yourself for hours on end, and everyone gets a chance to see Dave be like, this is a non-argument, what are you talking about? It doesn't quite hit the same way as when you're just on some like Piers Morgan yell fest.
Well, that's really interesting because they actually started the entire podcast by Joe saying the reason we wanted to do this is because so many of these debates are held on shows like Piers Morgan, and basically it's so theatrical, and it's actually somewhat so it's expert. It's just this deification of expertise, which is very disappointing from Douglas Murray, by the way, who on wokeness, on media corruption, all of that, he actually was with Taibbi side by side in an Intelligence Squared debate against Malcolm Gladwell and Ryan, columnist at the New York Times, Michelle Goldberg, and wiped the floor with Malcolm Gladwell and Michelle Goldberg. And Douglas Murray did some heavy lifting in absolutely excoriating the corporate media and its corruption. And here, he's flipping around and saying that because Dave lacks expertise, my favorite moment of this entire conversation is when Dave goes, I'm a free American, I can say whatever I want. And I just was like, felt like wrapped in the American flag, was going to like shotgun a Miller Lite when he said that. It was glorious.
Yeah.
Because that's his point. His point is that the audience is smart enough to make up their own minds if they are listening to a comedian who's really interested in history, or a, ex-military guy who's really interested in history, do 30 hours of a podcast. The audience is smart enough to make up their minds, to do additional research. They don't need to be protected by expert gatekeepers in every situation. And it's just, I found it very unfortunate to see that flipped again.
It's also very selective because it's not enough. So he's decided Dave Smith's not an expert. But he's also decided that it's not sufficient for Dave Smith to read experts.
Yes, exactly.
Have studied this, been to the region, etc. So it's, it's all very selective and very convenient when you get to be the expert, when the expert opinion matters and can factor in, and when it doesn't, in his view.
Yes, this is the expertise part of which drove me crazy. And so there's a specific, part of this. Let's take a listen to that.
Do also think that one of the bigger, kind of the bigger picture dynamics to all of this is that we have, at least since 9/11, been in a state of perpetual war. And all of these wars have been disasters. They have been so many lies involved in selling all of them. I mean, the whole Iraq war, the whole war in Afghanistan, just lying the whole way through. I mean, I remember literally having conversations with Green Berets in the middle of the war in Afghanistan, and they're like, George W. Bush is telling you that the army we're building up there is really successful. This thing's going to fall in a week without us. And then all through the Obama administration, it's just like lie after lie after lie with disastrous wars. And so this does create a fertile ground for people to say, I wonder if they were lying about all these wars.
Sure.
Again, I'm not really trying to argue with you about World War II. I'd rather argue about these wars today.
I think the interesting question is whether you're busy watering it.
Well, should you not talk about mistakes that were made overall?
Absolutely.
Okay, you should.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm all for going back and looking at mistakes.
So what is your argument then?
It's a very weird thing to go back, zone in on a man, say this one thing is a mistake and should characterize him, and you ignore everything else.
You're taking him out of context when you're talking about Daryl, who's done, what was it, 30 plus hours?
So what? 30 plus hours of podcasting. You do that in a week. I mean,
but it's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing. He's not doing a podcast like talking to people.
Okay, nor is he doing scholarly work, nor is he working in the archives. Clearly, come on. I mean, he is not the historian of our era.
He's not claiming to be.
Then read the historian.
This is like punching jelly.
No, but you don't consume his work.
What I'm saying, because I don't need to consume endless versions of a revisionist history. I understand.
But
I know
it's not
where this
revisionist
comes from.
history.
Okay, so that was about the Daryl Cooper thing. But that part I found very illuminating is this. He produced 30 hours of He goes, so what? You do that in a week. It's like Douglas is acting as if he is like one of the professors at Oxford that he got his undergraduate degree in English from. You are not that, bro. You have written books about multiple different subjects. You are the definition